Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
A basis for comparison. A reference point against which other things can be evaluated. The ideal in terms of which something can be judged. A statute in draft before it becomes law. How much there is or how many there are of something that you can quantify. A basis for comparison. A reference point against which other things can be evaluated. They set the measure for all subsequent work. Any maneuver made as part of progress toward a goal. The situation called for strong measures. Determine the measurements of something or somebody, take measurements of. The act or process of assigning numbers to phenomena according to a rule. The measurements were carefully done. Express as a number or measure or quantity. Prosody. The accent in a metrical foot of verse. Measuring instrument having a sequence of marks at regular intervals, used as a reference in making measurements. Musical notation for a repeating pattern of musical beats. Evaluate or estimate the nature, quality, ability, extent, or significance of. A container of some standard capacity that is used to obtain fixed amounts of a substance. Have certain dimensions. This table surfaces measures 20 inches by 36 inches. A basis for comparison. A reference point against which other things can be evaluated. The schools comply with federal standards. Any distinctive flag. Conforming to the established language usage of educated native speakers. Standard English. The ideal in terms of which something can be judged. They live by the standards of their community. The value behind the money in a monetary system. Regularly and widely used or sold. A standard size. A board measure equals 1980 board feet. An upright pole or beam, especially one used as a support. Distance was marked by standards every mile. Commonly used or supplied. Standard procedure. Conforming to or constituting a standard of measurement or value, or of the usual or regularized or accepted kind. Windows of standard width. Established or well-known or widely recognized as a model of authority or excellence. A standard reference work. A basis for comparison. A reference point against which other things can be evaluated. A system of related measures that facilitates the quantification of some particular characteristic. A system of related measures that facilitates the quantification of some particular characteristic. The rhythmic arrangement of syllables. A function of a topological space that gives, for any 2 points in the space, a value equal to the distance between them. A decimal unit of measurement of the metric system, based on meters and kilograms and seconds. Convert all the measurements to metric units. Based on the meter as a standard of measurement. The metric system. Of or relating to the philosophical doctrine of the reality of ideas. Model of excellence or perfection of a kind, one having no equal. Conforming to an ultimate standard of perfection or excellence, embodying an ideal. Constituting or existing only in the form of an idea or mental image or conception. A poem or essay may be typical of its period in idea or ideal content. The idea of something that is perfect, something that one hopes to attain. A ruler or tape that is 3 feet long. A measure or standard used for comparison. On what kind of yardstick is he basing his judgment? A surveyor's mark on a permanent object of predetermined position and elevation used as a reference point. A standard by which something can be measured or judged. His painting sets the benchmark of quality. A thin flake of dead epidermis shed from the surface of the skin. Remove the scales from. Scale fish. Music. A series of notes differing in pitch according to a specific scheme, usually within an octave. A measuring instrument for weighing. Shows amount of mass. Reach the highest point of. We scaled the Mont Blanc. A metal sheathing of uniform thickness, such as the shield attached to an artillery piece to protect the gunners. An ordered reference standard. Judging on a scale of 1 to 10. A specialized leaf or bract that protects a bud or catkin. A flattened rigid plate forming part of the body covering of many animals. An indicator having a graduated sequence of marks. Climb up by means of a ladder. Measure by or as if by a scale. This bike scales only 25 pounds. Measure with or as if with scales. Scale the gold. Pattern, make, regulate, set, measure, or estimate according to some rate or standard. Relative magnitude. They entertained on a grand scale. Size or measure according to a scale. This model must be scaled down. Take by attacking with scaling ladders. The troops scaled the walls of the fort. The ratio between the size of something and a representation of it. The scale of the map. An ordered reference standard. Accepted or approved instance or example of a quantity or quality against which others are judged or measured or compared. The back line bounding each end of a tennis or handball court. When serving, the server must not step over this line. An imaginary line or standard by which things are measured or compared. The established a baseline for the budget. The lines a baseball player must follow while running the bases. Baseball. A measure of a pitcher's effectiveness, calculated as the average number of earned runs allowed by the pitcher for every 9 innings pitched. A period marked by distinctive character or reckoned from a fixed point or event. A major division of geological time. An era is usually divided into 2 or more periods. Baseball. A measure of a pitcher's effectiveness, calculated as the average number of earned runs allowed by the pitcher for every 9 innings pitched. Judge tentatively or form an estimate of quantities or time. A measuring instrument for measuring and indicating a quantity such as the thickness of wire or the amount of rain, etc. Accepted or approved instance or example of a quantity or quality against which others are judged or measured or compared. Diameter of a tube or gun barrel. Adapt to a specified measurement. Gauge the instruments. Determine the capacity, volume, or contents of by measurement and calculation. Gauge the wine barrels. Measure precisely and against a standard. The wire is gauged. Mix in specific proportions. Gauge plaster. Rub to a uniform size. Gauge bricks. The distance between the rails of a railway or between the wheels of a train. The thickness of wire. A measure of a student's academic achievement at a college or university, calculated by dividing the total number of grade points received by the total number attempted. A measure of a student's academic achievement at a college or university, calculated by dividing the total number of grade points received by the total number attempted. An ordered reference standard. Anything that is generally accepted as a standard of value and a measure of wealth in a particular country or region. Anything that is generally accepted as a standard of value and a measure of wealth in a particular country or region. A statistic describing the location of a distribution. It set the norm for American homes. A standard or model or pattern regarded as typical. The current middle-class norm of 2 children per family. An ordered reference standard. A standard that is enforced uniformly without regard to individuality. A standard that is enforced uniformly without regard to individuality. A standard that is enforced uniformly without regard to individuality. Criteria that designers should meet in designing some system or device. The job specifications summarize the design criteria. Handle and cause to function. Control the lever. Exercise authoritative control or power over. Control the budget. Lessen the intensity of. Temper. Hold in restraint. Hold or keep within limits. Control your anger. A standard against which other conditions can be compared in a scientific experiment. The control condition was inappropriate for the conclusions he wished to draw. Place under restrictions. Limit access to by law. This substance is controlled. Discipline in personal and social activities. She never lost control of herself. Be careful or certain to do something. Make certain of something. Control the quality of the product. Maintain influence over others or oneself, skillfully, usually to one's advantage. She is a very controlling mother and doesn't let her children grow up. The state that exists when one person or group has power over another. Check or regulate a scientific experiment by conducting a parallel experiment or comparing with another standard. Are you controlling for the temperature? Great skillfulness and knowledge of some subject or activity. A mechanism that controls the operation of a machine. The speed controller on his turntable was not working properly. Have a firm understanding or knowledge of. Be on top of. Do you control these data? A relation of constraint of one entity, thing or person or group, by another. Measures for the control of disease. A spiritual agency that is assumed to assist the medium during a séance. Physiology, regulation or maintenance of a function or action or reflex, etc. The timing and control of his movements were unimpaired. Power to direct or determine. Under control. The activity of managing or exerting control over something. The control of the mob by the police was admirable. The economic policy of controlling or limiting or curbing prices or wages, etc. They wanted to repeal all the legislation that imposed economic controls. Verify by using a duplicate register for comparison. Control an account. A standard against which other conditions can be compared in a scientific experiment. The control condition was inappropriate for the conclusions he wished to draw.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.